Hi, welcome to the Sizeup video for the Midwest Fire Chiefs Collaborative. I'd like to thank the people involved in the operations and training committees for putting this information together so we can get this information out to all the crews on the trucks so they have the information in one concise packet. That way they get the information consistently across all the channels, so there's no room for interpretation. So with that, we'll get started. For this presentation, we'll review some of the reasons and purpose of the 360. We'll review the steps of the 360 and then show some examples of an effective and ineffective size-ups and exactly how we can gather the information and what makes an ineffective size-up. So the purpose of the 360 is to obtain a clear picture of the presenting issue. For the most part, we talk about doing a 360 for fire type jobs, whether with to identify a structure, what type of structure it is, a residential warehouse or an office building. But we can also use a 360 in terms of an EMS presentation. We can look at the mechanism of injury, gives us an index of suspicion and what type of illness or injury the people might have. And we can also use a 360 for a hazmat situation when we're trying to consider wind direction, hazards involved, population densities, and things of that nature. So this video is going to concentrate mostly on the 360 for a fire, but remember that you can use this type of information gathering to basically change it into any type of issue we want to address. So the purpose of the 360, basically so we can collect information. In the old days, we used to do a three-sided drive-by. As long as we could see at least three sides of a building, we felt that that gave us enough information to make a decision. As you can see in the pictures below, we're not seeing the full picture. We're only getting about 75% of the information that's available. We can see that they have fire on the first floor, but we don't have any idea what's going on in the rear of the building. We don't have any idea if there is some type of a walkout basement, or if there's a deck or any access to the other areas of the house. We don't know if that's a drop-off in the back there, and maybe we have a full 2 stories from the rear. So by not having this information, we're going to make a decision based on incomplete information. We need to know, is there a walkout? Are there victims around back? Are there impediments to our access? Or is there a pool or maybe some animals in the back? So we need to find that information. And the way that we get that is to do a 360 walk around. This allows us to follow this whole informed decision-making model using the scientific method. We're going to assess and gather information. Once we have all that information by looking at all sides of the building, we're then going to make a decision, and we're going to develop some type of a plan based on that information. And that plan is going to we're going to have an idea of how we're going to get to the very end through our implementation of this plan. As we implement the plan, we're going to evaluate constantly to see if we need to change anything. And we're doing that by going back and reassessing and making more decisions based on new information. So basically, seeing more sides of the building just gives us more information to base our decision, which means that our plan is going to be more comprehensive than if we only saw 3 sides. It provides a clear picture to everybody that's responding to the scene. Our second and third due companies, they're going to have an idea as they're rolling up what they're dealing with. EMS is going to know where to stage or have an idea whether to expect victims or not. And command officers can start developing their plan based on the information that we're going to be giving them off of that 360. The purpose, again, it's going to help identify the building type or the occupancy. Is it a multifamily? Is it an apartment building? Is it a single family residential? What type of town is it? What area of town is it in? So that gives you an idea of the type of occupancies. What kind of hazards? Are there wires down? Any animals present? Is the occupancy vacant? Is it occupied? Is it condemned? Do we have stickers on the windows that show that the county has condemned it for unsanitary reason or for hoarding reasons or something of that nature? And those types of buildings should have been already identified through our pre-planning, so we should have an idea of what we're going to do when we arrive on those types of buildings. We're going to identify utility locations. Where is the gas shut off? Are there electric wires coming into it? Where might the electrical panel be in the house? Is it electric only and no gas in the area? So what about basement? We're going to look, is there access to the basement? Is it an old cellar type access, or is it a walkout basement with sliding doors? Are there any exposures to the fire building? As we continue our walk around, it might not be uncommon to find victims laying outside or in windows or on elevated decks or balconies. Are they going to need ladders to get back there? Are there any barriers to our access? Are there fencing going around the building that we can't get past? Are there dogs in the back? What about bars on the windows? And again, by getting this full 360, we can identify the location of the fire and the best access to attack the fire. Based on some additional information that we've received over the past couple of years through the UL, is it going to be safer to hit the fire from the outside and knock it down, cool things down before we make an interior attack? And we get that information from that 360. We're going to identify the type and volume of smoke. Is it pushing? Is it thick gray? Is it a fully involved? Is it in the structure, or is it a room and contents structure? And again, we'll also look at the water supply and location, and then we can identify and declare what mode of operation we're going to be in, whether we're in offensive, defensive, or we're in this marginal attack where we're going to knock it down from the outside and then go in. But we can declare all that on our 360. So the steps of the 360, we're going to approach the building. And again, we can do that three-sided drive-by, but keep in mind that we have other vehicles that are still going to be coming in. And remember our apparatus placement. We want to make sure that we can get that ladder truck as close to that building as possible for the elevated streams or for the use of ground ladders. We can identify the fire, location, size, smoke conditions. That's what we're doing during the 360. We can see if we have smoke coming, pushing out through the eaves, is it heavier in the back or in the front? We can identify the hydrant location, and remember, we want to make sure we do have a water supply. And then we're going to give a brief on-scene report. This brief on-scene report is a quick, short, concise overview of the situation. Just real quick, I'm on the scene of a 2-story wood frame residential structure. I have heavy flames and smoke from the second floor front bedroom. That gives you an idea of what to expect. So the incoming crews, they have an idea that we're dealing with a residential structure. We have a working fire, and they can get the additional information during the 360 when the complete 360 is being given. So you're going to do your 360. It doesn't matter whether you walk clockwise or counterclockwise around the building, and it doesn't really matter who's doing it, as long as it's somebody that has the experience to know what they're looking for and will take the time to look for the important information. There are times when the officers get off the truck and they're going to be met immediately with the homeowner or with a family member panicking in a panicky situation, and they're not going to be able to complete that 360. So they might have to defer to the another senior member or even maybe the next crew that comes in to have them complete it. No matter who's going to do it, we need to make sure it gets done. We need to have those mental notes of all those different issues we talked about: hazards, utilities, access, and those types of things. So doing the 360 report, you don't have to follow any specific mnemonic, but there's one called Coal was Wealth. There's one called Below. It doesn't matter what we use, just as long as you get the information out. In my opinion, if you're going through each one of these letters, through these mnemonics, trying to get each one of these, sometimes that slows down the flow of information. You want to make sure you get as much information quickly and accurately to everybody that's reporting. And then you're just going to simply report what you see. Remember that this is a critical benchmark, and it has to be radioed on the fireground radio. If it's not complete, you have to inform command or the next incoming crew why it wasn't performed, because we can't make those plans on how we're going to attack the fire without this information. If you have to delegate to the next company to perform it, go ahead and delegate to the next company, but make sure you declare that on the radio. And remember, what you see isn't always what you get. You can see this house from the front looks like a typical 2-story wood frame residential house. As you go around to the back, now you see obvious you have a 3rd story or a basement. It'd be hard to tell from the front of the house that was there, and also from the front you could not tell that there was a fire in that basement. So make sure when you're doing your 360, you're getting the full report And if it looks like 3 stories from the back, make sure you identify that there might be a basement or there might be a 3rd floor. But again, those types of things that you're going to declare on your 360 help everybody else on their way in. So with all that in mind, here's a quick video of an effective size up and then a declaration on the fireground channel. So as you pull up to the structure, you're going to note what type of structure it is: residential, commercial, multifamily. You're going to notice what type of construction there might be, whether it's wood frame, concrete block, or steel. Notice the driveway, that there are vehicles in the driveway, and if it's the nighttime, you would expect this structure to be occupied. You're going to continue walking around, and you're going to make note of your basement. Is there a basement? Where are the windows located? What are the windows made out of, if they are glass block or glass paned? So in this situation, you can see that you have glass pane basement windows. Notice the utility location, and there is gas and electric into this structure. Going to continue your walk around and know that there's a deck on the back with an addition to the building. Windows to the back. You're going to look for any kind of victims that might be hanging outside. Might be you look for smoke and fire conditions coming from these windows. As you continue walking around, you're going to look for, again, your smoke conditions. What type of smoke? How heavy is the smoke? Make sure there's no animals in the back. Make sure there's no fences that are going to impede your working around the building. Notice all your different accesses. You have several accesses into this house from the rear. As you continue back around, you come back around to the garage side. We had already noticed that there were cars in the driveway. If you have glass on the garage door, you can check inside to see if there's cars inside the garage, see if there's any fire conditions in the garage. But at this point, you've gotten just about as much information to go ahead and make your 360 declaration on the fireground channel. So at that point, what I would say on this structure would be, I have a wood frame 2-story residential structure, single family. I have fire showing from the 2nd floor front windows. We have utilities at the Alpha Delta corner. There is a basement with no walkout. There are no impediments to our actions there on the scene. It's a clear walk around. We do have a water supply. Do not have any victims. We are assuming that this house is occupied, and this will be an offensive fire. From that point, I would like to thank everybody for watching this video. If you have any questions, please direct them to your company officer or one of your chief officers, and they'll make sure to get them to the appropriate people. Thanks again, and be safe.